Maya, thank you for being here with us tonight. It's an honor. You have been doing ESG-related work for almost 20 years, when this sector wasn't sexy at all, in different functions, from climate finance to ESG due diligence. From your experience, how things have changed in the past 2 decades in terms of sustainability?
Things have changed spectacularly on one side. There was obviously a massive rise of the sustainability topic, of the ESG topic. But before we become too self-celebratory, I think, about it, unfortunately, the emissions have not changed. They're also still rising spectacularly, which is not a good thing. So in terms of climate change, we're not better. I don't know if people here have a rough idea how many emissions, or let's say CO2 only, we emit globally per year. It's a large number. It's 37 gigatons. In 1991, we were at about 22, 23. So just that goes to show that we're still really at a spectacular rise of emissions, and that's obviously not good. At the same time, the importance of the topic has risen spectacularly. I also see and observe that governance around sustainability and ESG has changed dramatically. It used to be a little bit of a sideshow. There used to be like a small CSR unit doing some philanthropic efforts, maybe a little bit of sustainability strategy here and there, but it was nowhere near as hardwired as it is today. So today we have boards thinking about it, we have strategy functions looking at it, we have the business development functions thinking about it and wanting to harness the opportunities, we have the risk management side looking at environmental, social and governance risk and really trying to proof their companies and the financial institutions for that. So I think that's the good trend. And maybe one thing that has also changed, I think when I started, sustainability was mainly about climate change, which was mainly GHG accounting, looking a little bit at the emissions, and perhaps a little bit of gender. Nowadays, when we think of ESG, we look much broader. We look at biodiversity issues, nature issues, we look at labor laws, we look at human rights, we look at so many different things that it's gotten quite broad and complex.
Since you referred to the governance, I would like your comment on the EU governance against the American one, because the framework is different, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think it's a different approach. I personally see...
I mean, the Americans are more lenient.
I think they view ESG differently. So, for example, when I'm I lived in the US for 10 years, so when, for example, people thought about the S in ESG, it was mainly about diversity and inclusion. They don't, so for example, in the EU, we look much more at labor rights and these kind of things. So I think it's a different focus. I also think that right now the EU is marching ahead. Of course, we have the EU Sustainable Finance Framework, we have the Green Deal, we have the strong net zero commitment by 2050. The US is coming, but I don't know. I think in the US right now we see a trend of it being extremely politicized. So we have a backlash towards the ESG topic on one side and then a strong push on the other. So I think that's something that we need to look how that plays out.
At the same time, for the past 5 years, you focus on the financial sector. Which are the difficulties you face as far as the integration of ESG into financing is concerned? Is it easy to speak the same language with professionals that they only care about numbers and profit?
Yeah, look, it's true. I've been focusing in the past years on the financial sector because of the immense leverage that the finance sector has, because they're really the backbone of the real economy. For me, they're agents of change, if they choose to be, yeah? Because they can really, with their financing decisions, with their decisions on where to allocate funds, who to give it to, they can reach very, little included corners of the countries, even in, less developed markets. They can reach underserved communities with their financing, whether it's women or, other minorities that tend to have less access to finance. And they can really transform companies because the companies appreciate the access to finance, so they will jump through a lot of hoops to secure that finance. So this is a little bit the reason why I've been focusing on it. And you asked about the difficulties. Look, I think the difficulties are first, traditionally there's more of a short-term thinking in financial industry. There's, more like these 3, 4 year cycles where management provides strategies. In the SME sector, loans tend to have quite short tenors, so this is kind of the thinking, okay, it's a year and a half, it's 2 years, we don't really look beyond that. And for sustainability, that doesn't work. For sustainability, you have to think long-term, and you have to plan long-term, and you have to make maybe some upfront investments that will materialize along down the line. On the common language that you said, I think we are merging slowly but surely towards a common language. There's so many reporting standards out there. There's so many ESG risk management frameworks out there. There's the SDGs. So I think slowly but surely we're coming towards a language that we all understand, but we're not quite there yet.
I was wondering, how seriously do you take the ESG factors when you're about to subsidize, to give a loan to a business, because you do it directly, right?
Yeah, so EBRD is a multilateral development bank, so we invest in over 40 countries. Greece is one of them. And it was already in our founding papers that we can only destine our funds to sustainable activities. So this is something I think which is quite deep wired, so we take very, very good care of it. Now, after many years of developing that, we have sort of a three-pronged approach. So we have our environmental social policy, which of course covers the good and tried and tested ESG risk management approach, where we, for every investment, we evaluate what environmental social impacts that might have and how we can minimize and mitigate them. Then we came up around 2016 with our green economy transition approach. This is really dedicated green finance, where we said, okay, we're going to set ourselves targets to really channel. Well, the targets have been increased. Right now, our current target is 50% by 2025, and we've already reached it last year, so half of our funding to dedicated green activities. And then we thought, okay, but what about the other 50%? We don't want to do anything that takes us off course either, even though, you know, we may want to do investments that are not per se green, like, for example, a hospital, which is very important from a social standpoint, but maybe doesn't have many green credentials. So since January, we've also put in place our commitment, and we're implementing it since January, to be fully aligned with the goals of the Paris Agreement. So now we're checking every single funding proposal, also whether it's aligned or not with the goals of the Paris Agreement, and if it's not, we will not do it.